Imagine being dropped into a foreign country where you don't speak a single word of the local language. You're trying your best to figure out the rules, but the locals only ever raise their voices when you guess the customs wrong. You'd probably feel anxious, confused, and eventually you'd just stop trying. This is often how a dog experiences our homes. To bridge the gap between two different species, we have to move past ideas of dominance and focus instead on building a shared language from the ground up. Dogs learn by making associations and seeing what happens immediately after they act. To start communicating, we first need to figure out what your dog considers valuable, what we might call their cultural currency. You don't get to decide what motivates your dog. They do. For one dog, a piece of cheese is the ultimate paycheck. For another, it might be a quick game of tug, or simply the permission to go sniff a really interesting tree. Once you identify exactly what pays the dog, you have practical leverage. You can step away from frustration and start negotiating this new language using a currency they actually want to earn. Now that we have a paycheck, we need a way to tell the dog exactly what they did to earn it. We do this using a marker. This is usually a short, sharp word like yes or the distinct sound of a clicker. Look at this timeline to see how a marker works. Think of it like the shutter of a camera. The moment the dog sits, the marker takes a snapshot in time. It isolates that exact behavior, clearly telling the dog, that specific movement is what earned the reward. Timing is everything here. Because we are human, it often takes us a few seconds to dig a treat out of our pocket. The marker bridges that visual gap you see here. It happens the split second the action occurs, buying you time to deliver the delayed reward without confusing the dog. You do have to be careful with how you deliver that paycheck. A common mistake is marking a great sit, but then holding the treat so far away that the dog has to stand up to eat it. You've essentially rewarded the dog for moving out of the very position you wanted to keep. By combining a precisely timed marker with careful reward placement, you eliminate the dog's need to guess what you want. This clarity makes the learning process move faster because the dog spends less time wondering which of their many actions actually worked. To teach the dog new vocabulary, we use 5 distinct methods. These tools allow us to guide a dog's choices, rather than relying on physical handling or force to get them into position. The first method is luring. This is when you use a visible treat in front of the dog's nose, treating it like a magnet to guide their head and body along a path, like this curve into a seated position. Next is prompting, which means giving the dog a gentle environmental hint, like tapping a mat to encourage them to step onto it. Then there's capturing. This is waiting quietly until the dog naturally offers a useful behavior, like lying down calmly, and marking them for it. The fourth tool is shaping. Think of this as the hot and cold game. You reward tiny, incremental steps toward a goal, like looking at a target, taking a step, then touching it, until the dog discovers the final result. Finally, we have chaining. This is when you take behaviors the dog already knows fluently and link them together into a reliable sequence, like coming inside, pausing at the door, and sitting to have their leash removed. These 5 methods form the grammatical structure of your dog's new language. They let you take complicated, overwhelming tasks and break them down into bite-sized, achievable choices that the dog can master without being physically moved. A major roadblock families hit is feeling like their dog only listens when food is visible.
That happens because the lure, the treat in your hand, was left in the picture too long. To fix this, you must systematically fade the lure. The mechanics are straightforward. After a few successful repetitions using food in your hand, you hide the treat in a pouch or behind your back. You make the exact same hand motion, but with empty fingers. When the dog completes the action, you mark it, and then reach for the reward. This keeps the food as a paycheck for a completed job, rather than a visible bribe. Once the empty hand signal works reliably, you can add your verbal cue. The strict rule here is that you must say the word, pause for a second, and then give the hand signal. By placing the word first, it becomes a reliable predictor for the physical action. Now, what happens when a dog learns vocabulary you didn't mean to teach? Look at this flowchart of accidental reinforcement. A dog jumps up. The human touches the dog to push them down. The dog wanted attention, and they got it. Because jumping worked, the behavior happens more often. We can change this pattern by managing the environment so the jumping fails to get a reaction, like using a baby gate. Then we ask for an easy alternative, like sitting, and immediately deliver that same functional reward of attention. This ensures the dog learns that polite behavior is the most effective way to get what they want. Eventually, you'll run into a scenario where your dog sits perfectly in a quiet kitchen, but completely ignores you at a busy park. This is a normal part of how dogs learn. Dogs process learning through context. They notice the floor surface, the room's lighting, and even your posture. When you change those details by going outside, the picture changes entirely. You simply have to briefly reteach the vocabulary at an easier level in the new environment to help them understand it still applies. To systematically build up to that busy park, we use 3 sliders, known as the 3Ds. Duration, meaning how long the dog holds the behavior, distance, meaning how far away you are, and distraction, meaning what else is happening nearby. There is an absolute golden rule for progression here. You must only push up 1 slider at a time. If you want the dog to hold a stay for a longer duration, you keep the distance and distraction sliders at their lowest levels, ensuring the dog can still succeed. When your dog struggles, dropping expectations back down to an easier level is a strategic move. It is the most reliable way to build a skill that works in almost any situation. As you practice, it helps to measure progress by what you can actually see. Describing a dog that is struggling as stubborn or defiant doesn't give you any useful information to help them succeed. Watch this close-up carefully. If you see rapid lip licking, sudden stiffness, or the dog deliberately turning its head away, you are seeing signs that the dog is frustrated or confused. When you see this evidence, the solution is making the task easier so the dog wins. You also want to keep your training sessions incredibly brief, strictly 3 to 5 minutes. Frequent, highly rewarded successes teach a dog far more efficiently than long, exhausting drills that lead to fatigue. Training works best when treated as an ongoing cooperative conversation. Your goal is simply to arrange the environment so the right choices become the easiest choices for your dog to make. Here is your 5-step plan to start that conversation today. 1. Choose a simple, harmless behavior your dog already does. 2. Identify a reward they genuinely value. 3. Set a timer and practice for just 3 to 5 minutes. 4. Reward small, successful steps. And 5. Increase the difficulty of only one variable at a time.